Alright, guys, welcome to a brand new episode of something new that I'm going to call The Deep Dive. It's going to be just me and you, nobody else, no distractions, no Bean, just the way we like it. Just kidding, Bean, you know we love you. The point of this little show that I'm going to do now is so that we can all together take a deep dive into the Pro League and see things that sometimes get lost with the speed of the game. So let's first look at this All-Star voting. I'm just going to give you guys my opinions. I mean, Steve Carter, Josh Allen, only two rookies in the All-Star game. What's your opinion? I honestly don't know. Is that too many? Not enough? Remember, in order to advance to unlock that 91 overall potential, these rookies have got to earn an All-Star spot. So as of right now, Steve Carter, Josh Allen, if the voting remains the way they are now, they're going to be the only two to unlock that. And I mean, this is something that I hadn't thought about before. But with only five guards selected to the All Star game on both sides, they're so really good. Excuse me, guys. There's some crazy stuff happening. I'm refocusing now, though. With only five guards selected on both sides, East and West, being a guard in this league is going to be tough. You're going to have to fight hard to unlock that 91 overall potential. It might not happen your first season. But there's a look at your All-Star. Let's look at these calendars. I mean, game of the week, Cayman and Bobcats. What's going on? The Bobcats have been dominating all season long. They lose to the Cayman. They lose to the Ballers. I mean, you look at the rest of the schedule, an early loss to the Tornadoes, a whole lot of W's everywhere else. Here's a loss to the Snakes. Just some of these losses don't really make sense for the Bobcats, and that kind of worries me heading to the midway point of the season. You look at their schedule, they got the Rattlesnakes twice. They've already lost once to the Rattlesnakes, so then they got the Dragons coming up and the Hoop Stars. Their schedule does not get easier. Let's look at another team. Let's ignore the Assassins, even though they are surging right now. Despite a loss to the Chupacabras, their last loss was the Dragons November 8th, so it's been a while. It's a lot of wins. How about the Ballers? Last year in the championship game, this year about the only team they can beat are the Venom, the Bobcats. They snuck out a win over the Dragons somehow. Other than that, it's all AI teams that they're winning against for the most part. I mean, the Ballers are struggling. And I don't have an answer as to why. It says they beat the Hornets here, but remember, that was before the Hornets were the Hornets. That was back when they were an AI team. So that's not an actual win over the Hornets that you know and love right now. Chupacabra is a team that struggled last year, number one in the power rankings right now. These guys are on fire with four losses, same as the Bobcats, but they're doing it a lot more impressively. The Chupacabras haven't really had any bad losses yet. You see, they lost to the Snakes, Dragons, Tornadoes, and Hoop Stars. Four good teams. Whereas the Bobcats had a couple of losses to mediocre teams. That's why, in my opinion, the Chupacabras are the top team right now. But, I mean, the Chupacabras are going to have to be able to beat these top tier teams going into the postseason. I mean, they have a win against the Snakes recently. Other than that, they've had a fairly easy schedule. The Stingrays back when they were terrible, and the Tornadoes. That's about it. The Chupacabras could be deceiving people with their record right now, considering how easy their schedule's been. And that's another thing I want to bring up. The Ballers keep talking about how hard their schedule is. Let's look at that real quick. Snow Owls, I mean, AI team. Stingrays, who've been terrible all season. Hornets were an AI at this time. Talons, me. I was terrible early in the season, and I somehow beat the Ballers. Warriors, Stallions. I mean, bottom line is the Ballers GM is lying about having a very tough schedule. The schedule has not been any kind of cakewalk, but it's not the toughest schedule in the league. There's a lot of AI games. They had the opportunity to play teams while they were struggling. If you look at the Assassins, myself, early in the season, look at those L's. In the first 3 weeks, I had 3 losses. Some teams have only had, in the first 4 weeks, I had 4 losses. Some teams are at 4 losses through about 8 weeks in the season. So the Assassins were really struggling, and then they made a trade for Ed Payne, and that's when all the W's started falling in line. So you got to wonder with the Ballers who said it's because of strength of schedule, does it get easier going forward for them? Not really. They got a big game against the Hoop Stars, a lot of AI teams. Actually, yeah, in the next couple weeks, the Ballers have a lot of AI games. All they have to do is escape the Warriors, Lynx, struggle against the Hoop Stars to see if they can sneak one out. But I mean, it doesn't really matter. If you're the Ballers, you've got to win big games. Something's got to happen for this Ballers team if they want to start winning. Let's look at some more schedules here. The Dragons, you look at early in the season when they were playing really well, and then as of late, look at all these L's. They have 5 out of the last 7 were losses. The Dragons are collapsing right now, and let's see what this GM does to pull them out of the gutter. They lost to the Assassins twice. The last user team that the Dragons beat were the Talons. Then before that, it was the Warriors. Their last big win were the Chupacabras and Rattlesnakes. They lost to the Cayman on November 29th, and they really haven't been able to recover. Caymans, Assassins. This week here, the GM says it was probably because 2K forced a lineup change on him that he didn't want, but the lineup got changed back for this week, and 2 more losses. They only have one big game next week, and it's against the Tornadoes. That should be a massive matchup. But let's see what they can do to correct it. Stingrays, ever since picking up Amar Bryant, look at this schedule flip. Look at all those L's in the first 4 weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They started out with 8 losses and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wins. 5 and 8 is terrible. That's how they started. Now you look at the last 4 weeks. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What is that? 2, 4, 6. That's 10 wins, 2 losses. 5 and 8 to 10 and 2. What a turnaround one player can make. If you look at this Stingrays team, before this Amar Bryant spot, they had Junior Rollins right here. He's a shooting guard, a slow-moving shooting guard. He was just getting torched against the other threes in the league. So you pick up rookie Amar Bryant, and this team has flipped a script. Let's see if he can continue to lead the Stingrays. Warriors are struggling this season. Not a lot of movement. I mean, they have some good pieces, but the GM's going to have to make some changes. If you're a team looking for a sleeper player, might I suggest Andor Kafka? This guy has been fun to watch all season long. Let's go look at some of his stats. He's a sleeper player that I have my eyes on, debating on if I want to try to make a trade for him. Kafka, 6, 6, and 5. He's a starter. He's getting, how many minutes per game are they playing him? 23. I mean, he's a 78 overall. That's why I'm saying he's a steal, because this guy is going to be very generous on the salary cap. And look at those assists from a 7-foot power forward. I think Andor Kafka should be targeted by some people on the trade market. The Warriors might want to sell high on him. Venom, this team somehow picking up a lot of wins. You look here, they got a win over the Stingrays recently, a win over the Cayman earlier in the season. The Stingrays have had probably the easiest schedule to start the season out. And that looks to pick up in the coming weeks as they play the Stallions, Dragons, Assassins. So let's see what happens to the Venom. In my opinion, though, this Venom team, as you look, they have 180 overall starter. The rest are below 80. They are definitely preparing themselves for the future. Lots of draft capital. The GM is making a lot of good moves considering what he was given to start the season. I'm excited to see what Otis Bush, the GM for the Virginia Venom, I'm excited to see what he can do with this squad, because I like the direction he's going. Tornadoes, solid team this year. Top 3 easily. Yetis disappoints me. They got such a talented roster, but the GM is not doing anything with them. Joe Weber is the superstar on my radar. If you're out there looking to trade for a superstar, Joe Weber has been carrying this team by himself. You put him on a halfway decent team that needs some scoring, and Joe Weber could hit a new level. Chapel Hill Hornets. Let's see if you can see where they took over at. I believe it was right. I believe it's been about 3 weeks. I mean, the Chapel Hill Hornets actually, before they were actually the Chapel Hill Hornets, had quite a few wins. They were among the top A. Oh, they were the Guardians before they became the Hornets. That's why. So the Rip City Guardians, recently taken over by our very own Steve Carter, looking to make some noise. Got a pretty talented roster centered around Dion Hill, their superstar. They've been doing good in the recent weeks. Let's see what they can do next week. They have a really tough schedule against the Snakes, Tornadoes, and Hoop Stars. That should be fun. Let's see where we're at. The Cayman. I mean, people have been sleeping on them. Look at this. When they were an AI team, they had all these losses. They started out winless through 3 weeks. I believe they took over about here. They picked up a couple of wins over the Warriors and Yetis, snuck one against the Dragons, and now look at them as they get themselves rolling. A lot of AI wins there, but you can't overlook the Dragons and the Bobcats. Those are statement W's. And look at this Cayman roster. Everyone wants to talk about how they're overachieving right now, but I personally think big ball is the way to go in the SBF right now. Let's see if that sustains. Last season, you saw it worked really well with the Ballers. This season so far is working really well for the Cayman, and that's because they have Derek Walker and Mel McDaniels. Both of these guys, their overalls are only 87, but man, are they balling out right now with such a good playmaking point guard in Randy Baldwin. I'm excited to see what the Cayman can do in the offseason. Stallions are a team to watch. Their roster is loaded. They are deep. Look at this depth. No clear-cut superstar, but man, are they deep all the way through. Their overalls don't show it. Mo Booker, though, those of you guys that were here last season, they know he was a star point guard for the Talons. This guy can score. Vince Hart takes games over into his own hands. Man, this guy's crazy. The Stallions GM is reluctant to trade him, but I have tried. Vince Hart has been my top target all season. I have not been able to get my hands on him, though. Hoop Stars, somebody that's struggling as of late. Started the season off undefeated and then about mediocre in the second half so far. They have a loaded team as well. Probably the most stacked roster in the league. They have a lot of rookies that are slowly working their way up to 90 overalls. You see Sean's at an 88, Damiana 87, Hershey 85, Victor Lynn, the number one overall pick. I heard rumors that the first set of points Stingrays GM spent on Vern Beard, and the second set are all going to go towards Victor Lynn. So Victor Lynn right now, one of the better rookies in terms of scoring, 17 points per game. Let's see if that spikes when her overall jumps up. Rattlesnakes, last year's champion. Last year during the regular season, they scared me as well because I thought they were super talented, but just kept losing big games. And they're doing the same thing this year. They rise up to competition, but then they fall down to lower competition. As you see, they lost to the Yetis, lost to the Ballers over here, lost to the Tornadoes a couple times. The Snakes are still playing well, and the thing that has me excited for them this next coming week is Russ Hopkins is shooting well right now. And when Russ Hopkins shoots well, they are a tough team to beat. What else could we be looking at? Let's look at these power rankings real quick. Chupacabras, number one. Does not surprise me. Right now, the one user team out of the playoffs right now are the Cayman, but they are one game behind the Ballers. So Motown, they have got to clean some stuff or they're going to end up being eliminated. How do you go from championship last year or championship game to on the cusp of being out of the playoff. Only one team misses, and it might be somebody that was in the championship game last season. That's crazy to me. I don't know what I'm going to do if that happens. Let's look at some team stats real quick. Points per game being led by the Stallions. They are scoring monsters right now. I'll kind of scroll through here. Let's see what else surprises me. I can't believe the Rattlesnakes are down at 11. That's crazy. It does not surprise me that the Dragons are 12 because they win defensive games. I mean, last year the Talons were supposed to be all offense, and look at them, number 16 out of 17 user teams. Points allowed, there's that Dragons team, number 1 defensive team in the league, led by Michaels, led by Steve Carter, and this is why I think the Dragons were so good for so long in the season so far. Kenneth Michaels was actually playing well offensively, so they were winning games barely, but look at this defense, 77 points a game, just behind the Hoop Stars. Look at that differential for the Hoop Stars, though, 31.1. Chupacabras 31.5. The Chupacabras and the Hoop Stars right now, they have it going offensively and defensively. Tornadoes up there, points allowed per game. Let's see who the worst defensive team is right now. I mean, Ballers, you're not going to win many games if you're on the low end of the offense and low end of the defensive side. That's just not a good recipe. Stingrays slowly climbing, but here they are right now, dead last for points allowed. Defense is terrible, but Amar Bryant is helping that. Field goal percentage, Stallions number 1. You got Choops number 2, Stingrays 3. Let's see where those Ballers fall. Ballers number 16, last year's championship team. That's just the Dragons number 10, Hornets 8. Look at the Venom quietly, despite everything, towards the middle of the pack. I mean, I know they've had an easy schedule, but it's just as easy to lose these easy games as it is to win. Let's look at this 3-point percentage. I mean, Ballers looking like they're not even in the top 17 for this one. I don't mean to keep banging on the Ballers, but honestly, I'm using this video to help myself decide what is wrong with Motown. What can they do to improve? And I mean, right now, based on this, they need to do everything to improve. They're not in the top 10 for anything that I'm looking at right now. Let's look at just straight up rebounds per game. Are they here? Number 11. Who's the worst? The Warriors, that doesn't surprise me. Talons down there, Stingrays down there. The best are the Tornadoes. That definitely doesn't surprise me with Wang Fang, Jacoby Taylor. There you go, Ballers. You've got like 3 or 4 of the best facilitators in the league on your team, and you're rated number 5 at facilitating. I don't know if that's something to be proud of, but you cracked the top 10 on something. You know what? Screw what everybody else says. Screw it, I say. Ballers, be proud of that. You are in the top 5 for something. Dragons all the way down there towards the bottom. Vern Beard not diamond enough for that offense. You might lead in this one, Motown. Oh, that's embarrassing. It's me who's leading in this one. Turnovers per game. Levi, buddy, you got to clean that up. And there's the Ballers, not too far behind. All right, well, let me think about this for a minute. If there's anything else I want to throw at you guys. We don't have award races going on yet. I think that's going to be it, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode of Deep Dive. I'm going to try to keep this reoccurring. I'm going to try to get some guests on to talk to me about this occasionally while we're going through. If you guys have any requests on what to see on the next episode of Deep Dive, please let me know. This is just my attempt to get you even more SBF basketball. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Talk to you later. This is Jeffrey John, a.k.a. Assassin's GM, checking out.